Hey Funmi, so I'm going to work through this one. We got through a little of it, but I think I decided to do this in video form. I think that would definitely help you. So first off, our skill that is used when we have this like 1 plus sine x in the denominator is multiplying by the conjugate. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. It just, we know that's a reasonable step, so let's try it. I'm just going to rewrite the left-hand one. Now when we multiply on the right-hand side, as I suggested, do not multiply in yet, and in the numerator, just write it out. So I have cosine x times 1 minus sine x. And the denominators we talked about, that would give us 1 minus sine squared, which gives us cosine squared. And so this is where we were at, where I was having technical difficulty. So if I look at this, if I want to combine this into one fraction, I need to have like denominators. So I look at my denominators. I have a cosine x here and I have a cosine squared. Well, if I want this, this is smaller, a factor of that. So if I want this to look like that, I need to multiply this by another cosine. And of course, I have to multiply top and bottom by cosine. So we're multiplying by 1. And I multiply in by cosine. This would be in parentheses because cosine is being multiplied by both of them. So in the denominator, when I go cosine times cosine, that gives us cosine squared. So now we have like denominators here and here. When you have like denominators, you combine the numerator, or you combine the numerators and keep the denominator the same. So cos squared is going to be in our denominator. And now we have cosine x, I'm just rewriting, times 1 plus sine x. That's our first numerator. Plus our second numerator is cosine x times 1 minus sine x. Now, this still may not seem obvious how this will equal 2 secant. So what I'm going to do is do anything I can. I've simplified, I've gotten both the fractions together, and now I see I have these parentheses. It's like, okay, well, let's just distribute and see what happens. So I'm going to distribute in the cosine here, and distribute in the cosine here, and all of this is still going to be over cosine squared. So now when I distribute in right here, cosine times 1 gives us cosine. Cosine times sine gives us plus, and any variable times another variable is just the two variables being multiplied. So cosine times sine is just cosine sine. Plus, now that was the distributing of those two, which gave us those. Now I'm going to distribute this. Cosine times 1 is cosine. And then cosine times negative sine is negative cosine sine. And now I look at this, all that's in the numerator, and I look and I go, okay, well, I want to get to 2 secant. Well, let's just go ahead and keep combining terms and see what happens. So I look here and I look for my like terms. So my like terms, I have this along with this, and that's just a variable plus itself, just like x plus x. X plus x would give us 2x, so cosine plus cosine would give us 2 cosine. So I cancel those out. And now I look at these other two like terms, which would be this one, and I see they're opposites of each other. So cosine sine minus itself gives us 0, so those cancel. So now I can go ahead and not write anything else in the numerator, because I just have the 2 cosine, and that's over cosine squared, same denominator. And now I look at that and I go, okay, I have a cosine in the numerator and a cos squared in the denominator. Those cancel. And now I have 2 over cosine. And I look back up to the top. You can't see it right now, but we want this equal to 2 secant. Well, if I have 2 and a cosine in the denominator, cosine in the denominator is equal to secant in the numerator, so you could just write it like that, and there's your answer.